an individualized family service plan. So this is information that you need. It serves a purpose. It's a written record of all the information, and it's guided. It's an outline for the provision of direct and family-centered services. So this is a plan that's going to be developed for that child that is showing delays. Every child who has a developmental delay is entitled to have a service plan developed for them. And this includes infants, toddlers, and families, so the Part C, and also the Part C providers. These are the ones that are going to help you to develop the plan. So who's on that IFSP team? Who are those people who should be there? And I've also included with you the legal requirements, because when we do our presentations, we like parents to know what are the legal requirements for an IFSP. So you have this, and for all of you who are watching us on social media, these will be available to you as well. So what are the legal guidelines for an IFSP? It's an individualized family service plan. It's a written plan for providing early intervention services to an infant or toddler with a disability under this part and the infant's toddler's family. So there's the parents, as you can see, are the first ones on that list. They're here on the first part of that list. A minimum of 2 qualified professionals from different specialty areas should be included, like speech services, OT services. The family service coordinator as well. That person has to be there. And they play a very important role because they're, as you can see when we progress in the presentation, they're going to link you to the school. They're going to be that liaison that's going to help advocate for that child and for services in the school. And then at least 1 licensed medical professional should be on the IFSP team. So when we look at what we've just, when we covered, so what is an IFSP? What did we say it is?
So it's a plan.
It's a plan.
And it's for, so it's individualized, so it's for the child.
Right, it's individualized. Mm-hmm. It's a process, and it's also a document. So it's important to know that it is a process, but it's also a document that's going to be formulated for that child. What is the purpose of that IFSP? What is the purpose of that, of the plan? Why do we need a plan?
To help the kid for he can be able to perform the way that he's supposed to, be given the support to helping him to
right. To overcome that developmental delay,
yeah,
or to give support to that family also, so that they can help that toddler or infant in that process. And who makes up the team? Who are the ones that make up that team?
The parents and
the parents,
the
right?
Providers.
The parents, the providers. Who else?
A medical. You gotta have a medical.
There's a medical professional, and those are the physicians also, maybe your pediatrician as well. So those are the people that should be in that group. Family, there can be other family members as well who have interest in the child and their well-being and how they can play a part in that, that group. And there's also other agencies. If there are other agencies involved, that person can also be involved in that process and be a part of that team as well. So now we're going to go into what exactly is it, and what do we need to know about an IFSP to build that plan for our child. So we call them the building blocks. What are they? We've broken the IFSP down into five of those blocks, and I gave you a little card so that you can list those, because when we teach something, we want you to also write it down so you remember. And then if it's information that you can use, and you can also pass it on to someone else. So, as we always say, you learn something and you always want to pass it on to another parent. So the first one, and I gave you that little card. If you want to write it down, it's PLOD, P-L-O-D. Does anyone know what that is without looking at your study guide or P-L-O-D? Another acronym. So the IFSP is built on the information that's gathered, on the evaluations, on interviews with the family. That's how we build that IFSP. We need information. Before we do anything else, it's important to have information. And so the first step is the PLOD, which is a present level of development. The second one is the natural environment, and I'm going to go into them, but I want to see that you're writing it down so you remember. And then the goals and objectives and the services and family input and information. So those are the 5 blocks. Think of them as those 5 blocks. The first one is PLOD, and it's present level of development. So where is the infant at this point? We have to look at how they are developmentally, cognitively. We look at that area. How are they thinking? How are they processing information? We have to look at all those areas because we need to get information because we're going to develop this really good plan, and we have to address all those areas. So we have to look at physical development. We have to look at social emotional development, adaptive development, and also communication. So it's a comprehensive evaluation, and it has to be an accurate assessment of that child. So every child should have that present level of development. So you learned a new word as well today, PLOD, P-L-O-D. The next one is also determining what are those areas that the child has that are strengths. What are the challenges that that child has? Do they have behaviors? Then we want to look at that as well. We want to add it to the plan because we want that to be addressed and give the family those strategies to help that child. And it's also the foundation for creating a good developmental plan. So it's like building a house, right? We need to have a good foundation if we're going to build that house. And we use that a lot when we teach about the IEP, which is, we're not going to cover that today, but we need that, right? So that information is that foundation. Just like the card I gave you, we're going to build upon that foundation. So we need information that's accurate, that's comprehensive, that we're going to look at all those areas for that child. We have to look at their likes, their interests. What is that child like? What don't they like? What are they into? Are they into cars? Are they using the iPad? Are they showing interest in physical activity? All of that has to be individualized. What is that child looking like at this moment? Because that child further on can change, but at this time, what are we looking at? It's an accurate picture of that child. So where are they now, and then where are they going to go? The next block that we're going to look at is the natural environment. What is the natural environment? It's best defined as where that child lives, but it can be in different places. A natural environment can also be in a school setting, a preschool setting, grandma's house. It can be in, where is that child? And do they have access also to children who do not have developmental disabilities or developmental delays? So when we look at natural environment, it's important that we take that into account as well when we are preparing this plan for this child. And if you look at the legal references for that, it's the Section 5. Section 5. You can go into detail on what the law says under Part C for early intervention services. So it's the yellow one that you have. Yeah, because I give you lots of paper. So that's section 5, and this is so you can look at it and look at it at home and look at what the law says about IFSPs and what a natural environment is.
Yeah, this is a really great reference because so many times it's hard to find.
Right.
Well, where do I find this?
Yes,
And you guys
this
have
is
the
really
reference
good.
right
Right,
here.
so
That's
you
awesome.
have that, and you have the study guide as well, that you can always go back. And sometimes I tell parents as well, you have the law right there, so you can also use that, you know, you can share that information with your team, and work with them, because it's all about working together for that child. We want to work together with everyone who's on that team. So we have to look at what the family resources are as well. When we're looking at natural environment, we have to look at what are the family resources, what is the family routines, what are their responsibilities, what do they do in that natural environment. It can be in the park, it can be, what is the transportation that that child has. So we're looking at everything. We want to know this child, and we want to have information on everything in that natural environment. So more information is always best when you are developing this plan. Also referred to as placement. So we're looking at the placement as well. And it must be, to the extent possible, interactive with other peers that do not have developmental delays. And we have to look at what the benefits are of that environment. We have to look at what are the possible effects, harmful effects, what are the aids, what are the supports that that child needs in that environment. And that I also have in the section where, if you look at section 7, you can look at what is the appropriateness of that natural environment. And it goes into what the placement is, what the benefits are, what the modifications and services are needed, why is it that they're considering that environment, why it's rejected. So that information is included in that. So the long term are the outcomes for that child in the long term. What's going to happen if we provide these services for this child in the long term? How is that going to benefit this child? And then the short term is, how are we going to achieve those goals? What are the supports we're going to give this child so that they can achieve those goals? If the child is needing more communication, how are we going to work on that communication? If there's behavior, how are we going to put strategies in place to provide that child supports and help him with positive behavior? This should be checked on every 6 months. And a lot of parents don't know that you can ask to review that every 6 months to see if that child is progressing on those long-term and short-term goals, which is really good information, because you want to know that your child is progressing. If we have all of these goals, they look wonderful, but we want them to actually be progressing on that, because if not, then they're just sitting there. We want to see that the child is progressing. So it's important to call that meeting and to get every 6 months that information to see how that child is progressing. And asking lots of questions as well. Whenever you're involved in a team like that, you want to ask questions. You want them to share with you the data that they're collecting when they're working with that child. So, and that is one of the areas that parents need to really, follow up with. That is that every 6 months that you're going to get together to review that progress for that child. And then the services, the IFSP must include a description of those services. the type of service that the child is going to get. What type of service is my child going to get? Are they going to receive speech services? Are they going to receive psychological services, medical services? What is it that my child's going to get? What's the type of service? The frequency. How often is the child going to get that service? How many times a week? How many times a month are they going to come to the home? The intensity is the amount of time that's needed to work with the child. The location, is it going to be at home or is it going to be at the daycare? Is it going to be at grandma's house? Where exactly is this service going to be provided? The method as well. Who's going to provide that service? What service is it going to be? The method that they're going to be using, the strategies. Then the service provider, you want to know who's going to provide that service to the child. Is it the speech therapist that's going to come to work on speech services? Are you going to have a psychologist come to the home? I remember when my kids were younger, we had a psychologist that would come and was working on social skills with one of my sons. So that was one of the services, and he was coming 2 times a week to work with my son. And that was one of the services that he was getting. So I knew the psychologist would be coming, and I knew the speech therapist would come and go through my pantry with my kids. And it was just that revolving door of service providers coming into the home. So it's important to know who that person is and what is it that they're going to work on. So they're not just going to show up to your house and just, we're just going to chat. We want to know exactly what is exactly that you're going to be working on with my child. So it could be speech person, occupational therapist. It can be a psychologist, a social worker that can share resources with that family. So many of those service providers will be coming to your house to provide those services. Another thing that the document specifies is the date that it's going to start. When is the date that they're going to start to provide these services? The duration of the service, how long is it going to be? Are they going to be here every day? Because I remember, when your kids are really young and all these service providers start coming in, it's that revolving door, and well, let's open the pantry and let's practice how to say cereal, so they're all in your house. And so you want to know how long is it? How long am I going to have to pick up the house really quick to have the service provider come in? Is it going to be twice a week? Is it going to be once a month? Everything dependent on what that child needs at that moment. So it's important to ask those questions when you do develop this plan. And also, what is the expected date of the service? When can I expect to get that person to show up at home and to start services for my child? And a lot of them also, service providers also include like your pediatrician, if they have a ophthalmologist. All of those people are also service providers. So that's the family information. Whenever you're gathering this information, you're also going to look at what is the information about that child. Health information, you're going to have to fill out lots of information about have they had ear infections, what the development was like, are they responding to your directives, different things like that. You're also going to look at if the child is taking any type of medications, what the history is of that child, if that child has allergies, all of that information. So they're going to ask information from different providers. If there's a pediatrician, if there's a neurologist, that information, they're going to look at all of that history. And also you're going to be provided with the contact information of that service provider. Who is that coordinator? Because this is very important. That family service coordinator, they play a big role in this IFSP, because they're going to help you also to link you to information and also teach you what your rights are as a parent in that process. So they're an important part of that team. And also they have to share with you the fees, if you're going to have fees, the family cost share payment schedule. They have to share with you how much is it that you're going to have to pay, or if even you have to pay, because there are some families that don't have to pay for those services. But they have to look at all of that information in order to come to that decision for that. And it's really important to know that when you have the family cost share payment, if you do not complete it, and this is something I highlighted as well, and it's in your notes as well on the study guide, on section 10, it's on actually at the end on the other page. If you do not complete and sign the family cost share agreement form, ECI cannot deny or delay the provision of no-cost services. However, your child cannot receive other ECI services until they complete and sign the family cost share agreement form. So that's important information to have about that family cost share program. And you have it in the study guide, so you can always refer to that as well. So then we get to consent. So nothing can begin until we get consent from the parents. And it should be informed consent. So you know exactly what you're going to consent to. Parental consent is required for everything. For everything. They have to do it for the screenings, for the assessments, for the evaluations. They have to get your consent for that. To begin services, to also to exchange information between the family and the service providers, they need to have your consent for that. When you look at the section 11, it goes into more detail of what exactly is it that they would be asking you. The name of the toddler, the time and the location of the IFSP meeting, who's going to be in that meeting, the description of the activities, all of that information you have to consent to before they move forward for that. And then the legal requirements for an IFSP, which is really important. It must be written within 45 days. So they have 45 days to refer that child to the ECI services. And it has to be written in a language that the family understands. So if they speak Spanish, then that plan has to be in Spanish. If they speak another language, Hindi or whatever, they need to provide that information to that family so that they know what exactly they are consenting to. And it should be signed by all of those members. All of the members who are there should sign that document. And of course, share that information for the families to have. So after their third birthday, they should be entering into the system. I remember the very first day my son when he turned 3, he was already in school. And it was that, that change to going back into the school. So it's important that by the time that they turn 3, that they are going to start school. And how has it been with like the families that you have worked with? Are you seeing that a lot of them are entering once they're 3, or are you seeing more delays?
For us here in Fort Bend, the parents that I've had talk to me, many of them are getting this services maybe through ECI, but it's, especially the past couple of years, it's been a lot harder because of the reduction in the funding, and so it's been a lot of changes, I think, for a lot of families.
Right.
And then even when turning 3 and being evaluated by the school district, many times, sometimes the child just isn't developmentally delayed enough, or and the parents just don't understand why is it they will qualify for maybe some of the ECI services, but not
Right.
when they age out and get to 3 that the school says, my child doesn't need these services anymore. So it's always a struggle.
Right.
And so that's when, and for me anyways, I'd say, okay, an independent evaluation
Exactly.
kicks in, and so because you always want to kind of, if the school district's evaluation doesn't reflect that your child needs those services, then you are going to want your own data
Exactly.
and request that evaluation in writing for an independent evaluation at public expense.
Right.
So there's a process of documenting what you think might be appropriate for your child and getting an expert to agree with you on what that is and what that looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, so that, that information is this information, when, just going through it when my kids were younger, I mean, all of this information is so important because it's going to help your child with those areas that if they have a delay, they're supposed to be working with that child to help them overcome that, and also providing those resources to that family so that they have, the strategies to help as well. So then when we're thinking about that child getting older, then it's going to be time to transition to public school. And that's another step that, that should be included in that IFSP. And the service coordinator that works with you should be informing you of what your rights are, what are your procedural safeguards when you change from Part C to Part B. They have to be informing you because they're going to be that liaison that's going to link you to the school. So when does that transition planning begin? Those are the questions that you can ask that service coordinator. Give me some resources on what I need to be looking for, how I need to prepare for that transition, because that transition is going to be coming, and I think that sometimes that's the harder step because you're going from one environment, which is the home or the daycare, and then now you're going into the school environment. Who's going to be on that team? Who are the people that are going to be in charge of making sure that my son or my daughter gets the supports and the services that they need? What are those evaluations that they have to look at as well? Because it does change once they go from Part C to Part B, and so parents need to have that information, and we have that information as well on the on your study guide. You can also look at that. On the section 13, it goes into more details on what are the timelines for that. So if the child is being served by ECI 90 days before their 3rd birthday, the school must provide information on the child with the parent's permission at least 90 days before the birthday. So we have to look at those timelines and make sure that we know those. And then that transition meeting, which is we were just discussing right now, it occurs at least 90 days before the toddler's 3rd birthday. And that is on the section 13. If you look in your study guide, it's on section 13 on the other page, not the legal requirements, but you have another, the blue one, and that one is
The very back.
on the very back on section 13. You have the information under section 13. It talks about those timelines and who are the people who need to be at that meeting. The LEA is the local education agency, the school, and who are the professionals that are going to be involved in that meeting. And I think that that's where sometimes we get a lot of the calls that come in because they don't know what's going to happen next, and are they supposed to be contacting me, and what should I know? And so those timelines are important to have. So the next step really determines what are the services that child is going to need, And when they exit that Part C, where's the placement going to be for that child? What are we going to be looking at for that child when he exits that program? So the purpose of that transition planning is to initiate that evaluation process from Part B services. And then we have to look at the eligibility of that child. So we have to look if that child is going to be eligible for services. We have to look at all the evaluations as well. So that determination is by the ARD has to determine if this child is going to be eligible. And then developing that individualized education program that is important. And as well, it's also, if you look at that IFSP, it kind of looks like an IEP because we're looking at, you know, the structure as well, that foundation, the present levels of performance, and you can look at kind of what it kind of looks the same, but we're looking at development for the younger population. And then informing the parents on the procedural safeguards, which is very important, those laws that are the rights that parents have. And so parents have to be informed about those procedural safeguards and what their rights are under Part B. And the service coordinator should be sharing that information with those families to know more about their procedural safeguards. So a lot of the information that was gathered for today's presentation is through the Texas Health and Human Services. There's also a very good resource that we have on here. It's the ifspweb.org. It's an online IFSP assistance, and you go on there and it walks you through what an IFSP is. It's through Nebraska, and it's awesome because it's very interactive and it guides you. So that resource, let me go back. That resource is very good. I went on that website and it has a lot of really good information on what an IFSP should look like and the information that's provided there. 0to3.org also is a very good website as well that has some resources for you when it comes to the IFSP, because the more information that you have, that's going to help you developing this plan. So those are some extra resources, and you all have them in your in the presentation that I gave, the slides. In the very back, all of those resources are listed. So as you can see, the parental role is very important when developing the IFSP. The parent is part of that process. If you saw the list, the parent is part of the process and is the first person listed. So they have to be informed in order to develop a good plan for their child, in order for the development to be addressed through strategies of the people who are working with that child. And so why is the transition so important? We ask, why is it so important that we know about what's going to happen next? The transition plan, as a parent, you're supposed to know what's going to come next. So it's important to have all of that information provided to you. And as you can see, I also have a blank IFSP that you can also fill out and look at different, you can go through and fill it out with a pencil. And you can think about like what accommodations my son may need. Are there behavior issues that are impeding my son's progress? Do they have communication needs? Those are all areas that are so important, because communication is one as well. When they're very young, what communication mode are we going to use? Are we going to use PECS? Are we going to use PECS is picture exchange system, but are we going to use other ways of communication, sign language? Does the student have a visual impairment that we need to address? Do they require assistive technology? So this is really good. It's a blank IFSP plan, and you can go through and you can jot notes down, and then when you do have that meeting, when you do meet up with a service coordinator, that can be a guide as well to help you in making decisions for your child and for that plan that's so important moving forward. So I appreciate your time. The presentation is pretty quick, but there are more resources available on the websites that I gave you, and also you have access to the study guide and to the legal requirements for the IFSP.
I was going to say, I really like that sample there, because sometimes as a parent, you don't know what options are out there, you don't know where to begin, and sometimes just having an idea of the areas to look at, having that sample there, being able to go back to that, helps you think about, oh yeah, that kind of relates to my child, or well, this one not so much, but this one does, and it just helps spur some of the things that if you were to just sit down in front of a blank paper, you wouldn't know where to begin.
Right.
But if you have a template or something to go off of, you can start identifying, these are some of the things that match my child or his or her needs, and then you can start talking about those with, the school or with your ECI worker if you're working that 6 months, 4 months ahead of time before they turn 3.
Exactly.
And they're getting ready. So that's one of the things I was going to kind of talk about too is what does this process look like as a practical matter? So my child is, 1 year old, and he's been identified maybe by the pediatrician that your child has developmental delays. We would recommend you work with early childhood intervention.
Right.
So you reach out to early childhood intervention, and then they kind of develop
the plan.
a plan, and
they
then
evaluate
and do kind of this process that we've talked about.
Right.
And then they turn 3, or they're about to turn 3.
And then we start talking about transition. Yeah.
To the school, right?
Right. And sometimes that can also be self-referred. I mean, oftentimes parents are the ones, when it comes to development, sometimes they're the ones who pick up that something is not right, even before, sometimes the pediatricians do. And you can also self-refer to ECI. Yeah, that process can be very daunting with, all the information that you have to gather and the evaluations and looking at development. But the more information you have, the better for the supports that you're going to get. I've seen students who get speech services, even AA support. They get psychologists to come and work on counseling, or for the family as well. That's why the family is so important, because the family is part of this plan. Whereas when they go off to public school, then it becomes more individualized to that student. But when it's the family making the decisions, and we're looking at the whole unit. What is it that they need to help that child? What are the supports that they need? What does a parent need as well? Does that parent need training? Do they need information to help that child? So all of that is it's critical information to have when they're younger and going through. Also, meeting every 6 months to make sure that they are progressing is so important, because we want to make sure that the services that they are getting are being effective, because we have all these people walking through our door and we're not making any progress. Hopefully we are. We want them to make progress, but having that in there, that information to have, that you can say, hey, can we meet in 6 months to see if my child is progressing?
It seems like
makes it part of the process.
Yeah, when children are so young like that, 6 months is, oh my gosh, the amount of development that they make in that 6 months at a time can be a lot. And if they've been stagnant during that time and maybe haven't made any progress, I mean, that's really leads to a larger gap as they get older.
Right.
So, very important. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
So that information is there, and you can share that information to other families that may need it. The legal requirements and the study guide, those are available
Yeah.
as well. And if you have any questions, we have Carrie of the ARCA Fort Bend as well, and you can also contact us. I have that template of the IFSP, and I can also leave that with you, so parents can have that guide as well. And I also, for the parents that are here, I also put the flow chart that's available on the Texas Education Agency website that kind of guides you on that process as well. But I appreciate your time again,
Thank you, Anna.
and I hope the information is helpful to everyone. So I want to just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
And if you could fill out the evaluation, you already know the drill.